After the new comic days, after the dinners, after the final night under those fluorescent lights, there was the Alternate Realities gang, a community wrestling with the legacy of the store that brought us all together. In this final My Comic Shop History event, experience one last year with the AR crew in a story told over 4 seasons. And now, the music of Ralph Puma. Welcome to the My Comic Shop History Farewell event. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. This is For All Seasons, Chapter 2, Spring. And joining me in studio is a man who really needs no introduction by this point in this podcast, Steve Oto. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I was just thinking. I know you have a format to do, but I was just thinking that I know The West Wing, which you've never watched. There's a scene where President Bartlett has to do a video, a quick video for the nation, and he would come into the crew and say, "One take Bartlett." That's what they used to call me. And of course, after 3 takes, it's like 3 take Bartlett. So I'm thinking here, I know we have the itinerary of what you want to cover, but this is like, it's nice to be here for the first time, for the 3rd time, whatever. We've been doing this. We've done this many times, technical difficulties. But I'll say, happy to be here. Nice to see you. Let's just make this informal and cover everything you need to cover. And I'll just keep on talking.
This will be great. Yes, we did try originally to do this remotely, and technology was not cooperating. But this is better. You're here. We're face-to-face in the same room for the first time in a while. So this is...
In a couple of years.
Yeah. This is the spring installment of For All Seasons. Actually, let me start there. I don't necessarily expect you're going to have anything for this, but I'll ask it anyway, since we have our theme of seasons here. When I say spring, is there anything that jumps to mind specifically with respect to Alternate Realities and your long tenure at the store? Anything that you would typically do in the springtime? Anything, any sort of feeling or vibe at the store? Anything that comes to mind when I say spring? And if not, that's totally fine, but I wanted to start there.
Well, spring is always Free Comic Book Day weekend, right? The first Saturday in May, Freeloader Day. Even though I've been out of it now for coming close to 8 years, I still, follow people's Facebooks and all the other stores that we're friendly with. And I know they're doing a lot of preparation for it. And I guess what I've noticed is that over the years, they're always very happy about it. It's always a good business day and such, but it's always a headache. And now I notice that the old friends are, as they make their announcements, are also putting in the little comments about not everything in the store is free. We used to say, "Don't be a pig," because people take everything off the table and leave nothing. But they're also making little notations about, let's be kind, let's be nice, let's be sociable. So you can see that they're turning, not towards the dark side, but they're less happy about it.
It definitely feels like a shift, and also the 2023, again, gentler version of Steve Oto, "Don't be a pig," right?
Yeah.
But it's still the same underlying spirit. I don't know if you saw our mutual friend, Sean Hendricks, Fat Moose Comics. He posts occasional store updates on YouTube, and he posted one recently in advance of Free Comic Book Day. And just to pull back the curtain for a moment, Steve and I are recording this on Friday, the day before Free Comic Book Day. And I'm either going to put this up later today or tomorrow on Free Comic Book Day. So this is, not only is it the spring episode of this farewell run and a big episode for the podcast, but it's also meant to tie in a little bit to Free Comic Book Day, aka Freeloader Day. But Sean posted a video. He quoted you. he quoted you and your whole freeloader day bit. And the spirit of this, and people can go watch his video, he was essentially saying, like, we'll do it. We got to do it. We'll have a good day. But essentially, hitting on a lot of those same things. It's like, not everything in the store is for free. Like, you just relax, try to have a good day, respect the policies, things like that. So yeah, you're not alone. I think you were definitely maybe a little bit more
vocal,
a little bit more belligerent, but but yeah, I mean, when we talk about spring, I think Free Comic Book Day is probably one of the real hallmarks.
Big event, yeah. But I mean, other than that, it's like every day is pretty much the same as every other day. It doesn't matter what season we're in. The only difference is for me is that way back, every day was a lot of work day, long hours and a little sleep and a lot of headaches. I'm still staying up late working, getting up early working, but fewer headaches.
It's been, it was summer of 2010 when I filmed my comic shop documentary, which included your tirade about Free Comic Book Day. Okay. And I've since, pulled out that clip, and it's lived on YouTube. So, I do tend to post it every year on Free Comic Book Day. I sort of eased up off of that, especially during the pandemic when, there couldn't be Free Comic Book Day, and it was a tough time for everyone. I was like, this feels like, the wrong note. So I eased off of it. But look, we all recognize, I think, what the intention behind it is, get new people into the store. That's always a good thing if and when the event can serve that purpose, right? To actually potentially create new comic readers, bring new people in, and of course, serve your existing customers, make a fun event. A lot of stores do signings and other sales, like all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but there's definitely a lot of drawbacks. But yeah, I mean, it's been well over a decade now since we filmed that. And that minute and a half long rant that you went on, and if people watch the thing, like, there are a couple of cuts in there too. So it went on, even longer. That sort of fire though, like, could you even muster something like that now? Or has too much time passed? You don't feel that strongly about it anymore?
I feel lucky not to be part of it anymore. So, yeah, I mean, sure. When certain memories come back, even now, I start to flame on a little bit, I get a little hot and a little angry. I watch a lot of YouTube videos now, and mostly about comic book restoration, cleaning, but a lot of other things. Sometimes I watch the Japanese ones where you get on a train. They have a great train system in Japan, really luxurious, clean cars and all that. And so I'll just, like, with the cameraman or the YouTuber, just sitting as he's riding on this train for half an hour through Japan, looking out the window. It's very calming for me. But yeah, I mean, every now and then I do get a little flustered, and listening to I guess some other not necessarily store owners, but I guess people who are collectors who think they're fans, and the complaints they make and such, and I'm saying they have no idea. And that steams me up a little bit.
I understand. So a fair amount of ground to cover here. I want to talk about a number of the updates that you've experienced since the last time we've done one of these. I teased them in the last episode, our winter installment with Dr. Bill. You moved, you closed your Diamond account, you've been emptying out warehouse spaces. There's a lot to talk about, and a couple of updates on my end and the podcast's end as well. So a few things to talk about. But one other thing that I had teased last time that I just cannot hold back any longer is a moment from a few months ago where I came as close as ever to really channeling my inner SCO. And it's one of those things where I think I said this to Bill, like, if Steve ever wondered, like, did I make an impression on those boys? Like, did they take anything to heart? We did. So have you ever done anything with Facebook Marketplace? Have you bought or sold anything through there?
A long time ago. I guess right after we closed the store, and I'd be selling like a small refrigerator or a collection of Playboys and stuff like that. And just, it was too heavy to ship. So I said, let me try Marketplace. When we did the renovation, we had the old toilet, which is a mid-century modern, you can only buy them in white now, unless you want to pay a lot of money to get them in different colors. And I had this one in pink, so I put it up there. And I knew that doing research, because I research everything before I sell it, that this is something that costs hundreds of dollars if you really wanted it. So I put it on Marketplace, and of course you get all the comments from everybody who doesn't know their ass from their elbow, and they think, "Oh, he's so funny. Are you kidding?" And but you also had comments from people who are interior designers and such, and they said that's a good price, but they didn't need that particular color, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
So in the end, I was going to put it in the backyard as a potter, as a planter. I didn't think I thought it would irritate one of my neighbors who I like to twist a knife with him every now and then.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've likened it to a hellscape. I've used it more out of, I don't want to say necessity. There are other avenues, but sometimes it can be the path of least resistance. You just throw it up. You don't have to sort of go through the whole business of eBay and that whole process. In any event, I've sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace a fair number of times over the years. I think going as far back as even before the store closed, and my parents were selling my childhood home, and we had like a kitchen table that we were trying to sell. Right. So anyway, I've used it a bunch of times, often reluctantly. A lot of times I will regret it right up until I finally find the right person. And I will say, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, because the people I've ultimately sold things to have been great. They've been fine, but it's just a lot of hassle along the way. One of my pet peeves I found, at least recently, is the number of people who just click the "is it still available" button. It got to the point where, again, channeling you, I kept updating the description, like in big bold letters. I put, "Yes, it's still available." And what really bugged me was I would respond, and you can, as the seller, you can either just click a button that says, "Yes, it's still available," or you can write out a response. And I tried both versions. And a lot of times there'd just be no response after that. So it's like, well, why are you bothering me? Anyway, the
joys of retail.
The other frustration was, and this happened a few times, was I would have a deal set up. We had agreed on a price, and the person was set to come, and then they were just a no-show. And this happened a number of times. And the instance in particular, I had a couch in here. In lieu of the chair that you're sitting on now here in Flat Squirrel Studios, I had this little love seat. It was very, very small. It fit this space fairly well, but it was just pretty small. And as I started thinking about actually having guests come over and sit on it, I was like, I don't know how comfortable this would be. I'm thinking about V. Ken Marion. It's over 6 feet. I'm like, I don't think this guy can sit on this. So I decided to part with it, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace, and there was this guy. He had agreed to come, and then he was just a total no-show. And at this point, it had been listed for a while, and I was like, I gotta move this. So I dropped the price from $225 to, I don't know, maybe $175. I think I knocked off $50. And so then this guy who had been a no-show resurfaces, and he says, "Hey, did you sell the couch?" I said, "Not yet." He goes, "I'm still interested." I said, "Do you have the $225 definite access to a truck?" Because that was his issue. He didn't have a way to transport it. "Do you have the $225 definite access to a truck and a specific time you can come?" He goes, "The price reduced for everyone but me."
The penalty.
That's so, and this is where I really held back, but there was enough inner SCO that I think kind of came through, where I said, I only reduced the price because you were a no-show and I need to move this. So yes, it's the original $225 if you want it. Do you want to proceed? He goes, "That's unfair, so I'm good." I said, "From my perspective, it's unfair to reward someone." That's you. I said, "From my perspective, it's unfair to reward someone who didn't show with a discount when we already had a deal. But it's all good. Take care and good luck finding a couch." That's not you.
That's very kind of you.
But look, you don't know who you're dealing with out there. And I always just want to leave it. It's like, look, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, it's like you want to enjoy the benefit of the discount that I only offered because you didn't show up. Oh, that drove me nuts.
Yes. I'm so glad that when I'm gone, I know that the planet is in good hands.
There have been a number of instances, and Bill and I talked about this a bit as well, where there are a number of things you are right about, and you have been right about, and some things that we've acknowledged in the past, and other things that I think as more time passes, I do come to see. I think it was our mutual friend and former shop employee, Sean McInerney. He commented on one of your Facebook posts. This was maybe over a year ago at this point, where it was something about that maybe you had sold something on eBay and you were like, "See, people said it wouldn't sell, but everything sells. I was right." And Sean wrote and he said, "You're not wrong." He goes, "You're crazy, but you're not wrong." I just remember thinking, man, like that really does kind of sums him up.
But I'm happy in my insanity. You know, it's my happy world. How can I say it? Not that it's always better to be right, but it's you know, it's an extension of everything eventually sells, right? So I guess for me, it's like eventually everybody understands what I was thinking 10, 15 years ago. And they say, okay, now I understand why he thinks like that. Or now he turned out to be right about it. I mean, even Casey once said that, you know, as much as he disagreed with a lot of what I said and thought, there are times he says, well, there are some things he said that he was right. And that's all. You know, hopefully these are like, not lessons, but they become ingrained in the next generation, so it makes their life a little easier to deal with some of the bad things that happen. You know, yeah, that's the best I can do. I'm not a teacher. I always knew that I wasn't meant to be a teacher. I didn't have that kind of patience.
As someone who now has been teaching at the law school level, no less, it definitely requires an abundance of patience. And I've cultivated a lot of patience, especially being parent to a toddler. I'm infinitely more patient now, but even still, you know, it definitely, especially, you know, when you're saying the same thing over and over, and maybe it's not always, it's not always registering. Yeah. So, you know, it is what it is. We roll with it. So much more to still talk about. We have a couple of questions from one of our patrons,
really?
Brian Dempsey. Yeah, man. Oh. Especially when Steve Oto is coming on. Although,
please.
Brian, especially with the Digging for Kryptonite podcast, he's always submitting really great questions. So he's made the most of that Patreon reward tier, and I appreciate it. And my thanks to all patrons. I mean, it feels weird to plug this now. I mean, if you haven't become a patron, we have 2 episodes left after this. But patreon.com/Anthony Desiato, a lot of bonus stuff. And while this podcast is ending, Digging for Kryptonite and Summoning the Zords and various other projects are always out there in the mix. So the other podcasts within the Flat Squirrel Podcast Network will continue. We'll continue to have bonus features and bonus episodes and things like that. So it really does help me cover the cost of all of this. So thank you to all patrons. So Brian said, you know, this is funny. I had to address this at some point. To you or about you, says, does Steve believe you when you say this is the last run of My Comic Shop History episodes? If he does believe, why? If not, why not? He said, I'm curious because he said on more than one occasion, I can't believe we're still talking about this. Do you believe me when I say this is the final run of My Comic Shop History?
Not this last time. You know, we've done this is the final episode or this is the final whatever, and we've done that a couple of times. So when you contacted me to say, let's do this, it's going to be the final, I said, yeah, okay, until next year or 2 years from now. Who knows? I mean, as long as there's something to talk about, what the heck, you know? But I guess in the earlier years, I thought to myself, there's got to be more interesting stuff to talk about. And since then you expanded into your Superman thing. But, and you know, but realistically, in the past few years, alternate realities is still technically around and has changed its face. But it's probably, I mean, I still sell this stuff on eBay, and I have all the warehouse rooms, everything I had in the house, which covered the entire downstairs garage, the dining room, and 2 bedrooms. All that inventory is now in the new place and organized. I brought photos because we couldn't do this at the new place, but it's so organized that, you know, I said, I need this trade, I need this hardcover, I need this action figure, statue, whatever. I can just go right, take it, and every day I just put up 5, 6 things. I'll probably try to get up to 15, 20 a day, and then eventually have the entire inventory out there. And I'm not trying to get top dollar. So, you know, it takes time because I'm researching everything and saying, well, everybody else has this for 20. I'll put it up for 15. But I still get irritated by the guy who offers me 2, you know, and that happens even on eBay. But there are a lot of people on eBay who will offer me 12, and I'll say, okay, fine. Because as far as I'm concerned, this stuff has been more or less paid for. And I guess that also part of the change in time is that I know I'm getting older. I don't want to end up sticking Evan with this stuff. I've come very close a couple of times in the past couple of years to contact, I won't say wholesalers, other dealers, and to see if they'd be interested in buying everything in one shot and just wash my hands of it. Because even if I sell them all the statues or all the trades or something like that, I still have so much other product. So that I just bought a new collection. Maybe it's already been half a year ago or something.
Yeah.
Like that. But I haven't touched it. And there must be 5,000 books there. Old books, Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze. So these things need to be looked at individually, cleaned, and bagged and boarded and all that sort of stuff. And then I have to list it. So I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to do this. But it's a fortune. And, unfortunately, some of the dealers I was going to contact have passed away. So I guess I won't be selling him this stuff. Let's face it, there are a lot of us who are now getting up there in age where this is very difficult to do. So, but it's hard for me to get rid of it, to just give it away. So it keeps me busy.
We are an affiliate of BCW Supplies, so the next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. Filmmakers and movie fans alike should be sure to attend these film festivals: Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, Point Lookout on Long Island, and In the Cut in Bloomfield, New Jersey. On a personal note, my short film, By Spoon, the J. Mizell Story, played at these fests, so I know firsthand what fun and well-run events they are. Submission information for filmmakers, as well as details about the festivals, can be found at filmfreeway.com. Follow the festivals on social media for news about events, discounts, tickets, and more. Also, listen to the Hang On to Your Shorts and Cullen On Film podcasts, available via a shared universe network. Fat Moose Comics is New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store. Established in 1982 and under new ownership since 2020, Moose sells a wide selection of new and old comics from every publisher, action figures, graphic novels, posters, statues, and more. If you're looking for something and they don't have it, they can probably get it for you. They know a guy. Visit Fat Moose in Whippany, New Jersey the next time you're in the Garden State, and be sure to reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. I don't know. I think that answered Brian's question. I think.
Do I believe it? No, we're going to do this again in a year or two. That's fine, because something new is fantastic's going to happen. We're going to have to talk about, the Golden Age collection of alternate realities. It's now up for sale.
The escape hatch I've left for myself, and I believe I alluded to this last time, or maybe even directly stated it. If there's something so compelling, I mean, short of the store returning, I don't know what it would necessarily be, but if there was something that were that compelling that warranted either a return or a special or something like that, it's not that I would absolutely refuse, but I really don't foresee that. I really do think there's value in putting this to bed and signing off, and we leave people with what I believe and what hopefully the audience believes is a great run of this podcast over these 8 years. That to me is the way. And I also feel like these conversations do continue, but just in other places. Like, I'm doing my George Reeves Adventures of Superman rewatch podcast. We've had Rich Roney on a couple of times. He'll be coming back. Hopefully we'll have you on before this, because the episode's not until season 6, but at a minimum, when we get to the Mrs. Superman episode,
my favorite,
that's your episode. So it's like, you'll come on that and we'll have a conversation. So it's like the conversations do continue. But as far as this podcast, this format, I feel like at a certain point, I'd never want to get to the point where we're like spinning our wheels. So this really is the end, whether people believe it or not. And we'll have to just wait and see. That's the only way we'll know for sure.
Well, I don't know. I especially now, again, I'm on Facebook a lot, right?
Yeah, you don't say.
And, people post photographs of the cast of some TV show from 2000, and this is what they look like today at a reunion. And those are kind of nice to see. You say, wow, they got old. But then you realize, oh, I got old too. But where they have, I guess, especially like somebody who casted did something in the 1980s. And here it is 40 years later, and they had a reunion, and it's just nice to see, that friendship, the camaraderie is still there, the relationships are still there. not just. I mean, you think about Lord of the Rings and the Nine. They all got tattoos together, right? And you realize, gee, that was so long ago. It's hard to believe because, in my mind, it was just really the other day. That's the other thing that struck me about all these people on YouTube who are showing off their new acquisitions. They say, I just got this. This is a grail. I'm looking at it and saying, it's a nothing book to me, But this is from the 1990s. I'm thinking, 1990s? Or somebody says, I just bought this fantastic collection, this old collection from the 1980s. I say, 1980s? I've been collecting for 20 years before that, So it's all a matter of perspective. I think for future audiences, whether they see the first listen to the first one or the last one, it's like, wow, those are really old. But isn't that nice that 20 years later, in what would that be, 2043? They say, hey, they had a reunion. That guy Bill is old. Look at Roby. Remember Roby? There was one night when Roby was on the phone and he was talking to a friend and talking about Amanda, who was 30 at the time. And Roby was in college. And he said, yeah, there's one girl that plays Magic, but she's old. She's like 30. And Roby's what, 35 now?
Yeah.
Something. So, when he turned there, I was like, wow, you're old.
Sure. Well, to your point about the collections, and about feeling old, I've definitely been running into that, especially thinking about TV shows in particular. Smallville, for example. Over 20 years now since it started, and well over 10 years since it ended. It's like so much time has passed. And with the comics in particular, especially Digging for Kryptonite, the Superman podcast, and on Twitter in particular, a very nice, robust Superman fan community there. But I'll see people talk about how they got into Superman, and there are others like me who was the 90s with Death of Superman, or plenty of people with earlier. But then I see people all the time, they got into it with the New 52, right? And in my mind, it's like, oh my God, that's so recent. But that's the thing; everyone's coming at this from a different angle. Speaking of comics, Brian's other question points to something that I wanted to ask you. Are you reading anything these days? Either old material that you're going through or anything current? Like, are you reading any comics at this point?
I'm trying to think. Because of the move, I've been moving up about 100 boxes of comic books and trades, and mostly all the stuff I collected as a kid, which is a lot of Japanese comic books. The thing about moving that's been fun for me is that whereas I might have picked up a volume 3 and then a volume 5, none of it was ever put together in the house. But now that I'm moving and I'm opening up a box, it says, oh, here's another volume of that title, and I can actually put it on a bookshelf. So it looks fantastic. So I kind of skim through that. It brings back a lot of memories. Stuff I got in Japan in the 90s. Was it the 90s? No, it was the 80s. And it's like, wow, I remember buying this at a Japanese bookstore, that type of thing. But am I reading anything? Not really. I don't really collect anymore. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I've always been a fan of Prince Valiant, Hal Foster's Prince Valiant. So Fantagraphics still puts out those collections, big hardcover collections. And since I don't have the Diamond account anymore, I have to ask. I ask Mark at Oh Yeah to order it for me each time. And if I happen to be visiting and I see something that catches my eye, like I think Alan Davis has just finished some sort of Avengers miniseries, 5-parter, and I think his art is beautiful. So I'll buy that, not necessarily to read it, but just because I think this is beautiful to look at. I'll still go on eBay and look at covers of books that I think are really nice. Archie covers, I think there are some that are really beautiful. Some of the covers from old paperbacks, the what do you call them? Thrillers, mysteries. The really crappy pulp type stuff, but the painted covers are fantastic. I just bought a bunch of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Carson of Venus books because they had Frazetta covers and Roy Krenkel. So I'm just doing just for that, to have a nice little display of those things. I buy art collection books. I just got these. What is it? She's a Danish artist named Pernell. Beautiful stuff, and they were very hard to find, but I managed to get those. So I'll buy those. But there are a lot of times I look at stuff and I say that would be nice to have, but I just don't. I say, what am I going to do with it now? Have it for a while and turn around and sell it.
No, I hear you. Was Walking Dead the last thing that you were still following,
reading,
ongoing?
Yeah, but I guess with the TV show also. But got to the point where when they killed Glenn, was that a spoiler? when they killed,
it's been years at this point. So,
at that point, I said I quit, and I tried a couple years later. I tried to go back to watch it at that point, and I just couldn't keep going. It's just.
I will say, no, I mean, this is more of a tangent, but it did rebound. The last few seasons were stronger than it had been. So was it so good that I'd be like, you got to go home and sit down and binge these? Not necessarily, but if you had any sort of interest, it definitely got better. And I think it ended in a solid place, although, they're just launching more spinoffs. So it wasn't really that conclusive an ending.
Right. I was watching the parallel show. I don't remember the title anymore.
Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah. And I didn't like that in the beginning, but they got better. And I guess it's like anything else. Like even Star Trek, the first seasons of any Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, they're all kind of weak. I always think because you don't know the characters and they don't really know each other and how they're going to play the characters. So it's by the second or third season, they're more comfortable in their roles and you're more comfortable seeing them so that by the end of it, you're really sad that it's over.
Sure. I will say, though, I did glean kind of an important life lesson from Rick Grimes at the end of season 8 after the confrontation with Negan, where he allowed his mercy to prevail over his wrath. My mercy shall prevail over my wrath. Now, there have been a few instances, maybe not with that guy from Facebook Marketplace, where I've allowed mercy to prevail. And there's some value in that. A lot of times we have this anger. You want to, you just want to throw it at somebody, throw it in their face. But sometimes you just let that mercy prevail and everything will be all right. So it was worth it, if for no other reason than that. It was a good, valuable lesson. So
I'm glad that works for you. It would never work for me.
I know. Man, if they didn't lose you with Glenn, they would have lost you there. I get it.
Well, even in real life, again, I bought this collection, and a lot of it is fantastic stuff that in the old days I would have said, let's clean this up and send it to CBCS or CGC for professional grading. But I read all the stuff that CBCS is doing a big push now, advertising to say, hey, our turnaround times are going to be faster. You don't have to wait a year and a half to get your books back. The comments that they get are not all positive, and their reply, if they even bother to reply to criticism, is we'll please give us another chance. We'll do better. But there's one guy who wrote a comment that I sent 25 books in, and 5 of them were damaged. But the rest came back, and it was great. And I commented, I can understand maybe one getting damaged, but to have 20% of your shipment not destroyed, but essentially, I said you got to be incredibly patient. I think that that's a terrible percentage. And he says, well, I'm a very a forgiving person. And I thought, you're a jerk. Because can you? I mean, I have hundreds of books that should be sent in, and the conditions that come. Well, they're so old that they deserve it to be graded, but their value will quadruple. But it's like I don't dare take a chance. And I just don't understand, how. I mean, I understand. How can I say? I feel bad for the grading companies, but they kind of screwed themselves. It's like one guy recently, I guess he commented that he sent in 3 copies of one of the more recent books. I think Last Ronin, the Last Turtles book, but it was signed at New York Comic Con by the entire creative team, and they destroyed them or they lost them, something like that. But since they weren't insured properly, or they said it wasn't insured properly, they could only give him $1 per book as a compensation. or they're going to give him $20 towards the next grading charges. And it's like, how can you do that? And CBCS was one that lost hundreds of books, and they can't account for it. CGC, not much better, because all of a sudden they've changed the way they're doing grading, so that if you just clean the book,
right,
they give you a purple label, a restored label, which devalues the book by 66% or so. And that's just clean. And the other thing is, because it's done by human beings, people have sent in books that were not cleaned and got purple labels with a comment that it's been cleaned. So, it's almost like, well, we can't prove that it was cleaned, but we think it was.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't prove it wasn't clean, so here's your purple label.
Yeah. And again, all the people on the big comic book people who send in stuff all the time and have the big, the videos where they say, here, the book's back, and what do we get? And it's like, 9.8, 9.8. I guess I look at it and say, well, they're always going to get 9.8, because you're not going to send books that are crappy to be graded. But every now and then they'll get one back that's like, I can't believe I got a purple label. And some of the guys who do the cleaning, the conservation, are getting all pissed off that they're getting purple labels back. When it's like, I've sent 100 books in last year, and they all came back blue label. I sent this one book in, and it came back. And even in the same batch of books, they all had the same process done, and one or two come back. I mean, I guess eventually, I think AI is going to be doing all the grading. They have to. And, it's the future.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. But let's keep rolling along here.
Sorry.
No. This is very, and I imagine people would be curious to get your take on the state of grading. I mean, it's funny when we talk about grading, my mind instantly goes to Metropolis Collectibles, but even more so Torpedo Comics in Vegas, one of the stores I went to with the documentary, because they had not every single comic, because they did have quote unquote regular back issue bins, but those back issues were double or triple board and bagged and everything. But other than those, like everything else in the store was slabbed with CGC, and it was just the walls and walls, and then in their back room, just long box after long box after long box of these CGC books. So it was crazy. So my mind instantly goes there. Speaking of other stores that we featured, by the way, there are leaf blowers right outside my front door. So if you hear anything, folks, for a couple of minutes, that's what's going on. Bear with us. But what a roller coaster here. Spider's Web. When Bill Mayo and I did our winter episode, we were mourning the closing of the store. And since we did that between winter and spring, the store came back under new owners. So
did you have any of the details regarding that?
No details. All I saw was the social media post that, hey, we're back, and they have a different Instagram handle, which I don't know what happened there, because I feel like it's, I know from firsthand experience how hard it is when you're trying to get people to like or follow an additional page or something like that. Like, it's hard. So when you have something built up already, to the extent that you can kind of keep people there, that's, typically more advantageous. So all I know is I believe they were former customers who took over. You might probably know more than I do.
I knew that, I guess prior to the end of the year, he had certain health problems, but he was better. Every time I visit, I rarely visited as time wore on, but each time, he was one of the friendliest, nicest guys you could ever deal with, and the kind of guy you just sit down and have a slice of pizza with, that type of thing. And always very welcoming, always very generous. He used to supply me with bubble wrap and that kind of things. But I knew it was wearing away. You could tell it was wearing away, and that's because he was, as people know, he was a former customer, one of the nicest guys and one of the best customers we ever had. But his dream was to open a comic book shop, and when he did, it's like, okay, you want to help him out, but you felt bad. It's like, you know what, you're going to turn into me. And sure enough, as the years went on, because he had been around for a few years, as the years wore on, you'd sit with him and you knew that he was turning into me. Suddenly it's not all happy time and joy time. So it was a surprise that he announced that he was closing was it early January, I guess it was. And I was going to give him a call, because I kind of, as tragic as it is for I guess the customers that the store is closing, as the owner or something like that. I said, it's a change, but it's a positive change. And I said, so I think I wrote to him and said, I'm actually very happy for you because it's going to be good for your personal health, your health, your emotional health, psychological health. It's I knew he had a large inventory. So I said, this is great. If you move all that stuff out of there and you can just start selling it online, like Magnum did, like Neil at Magnum, when he closed his shop, God, I think his garage is like a warehouse. And he just pops it all up all the time. He has thousands of things listed. But I said, this is actually exciting because I guess one of the things that I enjoyed was I would take this book out or anything, statue, and I inspect it closely, look at it, make sure it's complete, and so I can grade it and look into the history of it, who wrote it, who drew it, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's research. It's legal research. Maybe that's why you and I did that. It's like it was our calling to do, to research. More fun than the actual selling or buying. And so I thought this is a great thing for Paul, and then, but I never got around to. I wrote a couple times, but I never got around to calling him after a while because I wanted to call and say how are you doing? How's the adjustment? But just before that weekend, it was a day before I was going to call him, is when he put the announcement out that new ownership, and that surprised me. I haven't gone to see these the new store, new owners. I don't know them, but I kind of wonder how they're doing. Did they bite off more than they could chew? Or is it a repeat of people who say, "Gee, it'd be so cool to own a comic book store," not understanding that there's a whole different aspect to it.
Yeah, I really have no idea, but those are good questions. I share them. I guess the one thing that I especially worry about, my understanding from the way things played out, at least what we saw on social media, it seemed like the store had been closed for some period of time before these new owners came in.
About a month or two, right?
So I wonder, in an ideal scenario, if you could have had a handoff and not have the store closed, because people had to find other shops. I'm sure there were a lot who, again, that was tough with the location, but people who maybe ended up at Mark and Harrison or started going to the city, whatever they or dropped comics. So now it's like you have to let people know, hey, we're back. And that just creates a new hurdle as opposed to, hey, it's just kind of a changing of the guard. So, again, obviously, things don't always work out the way you'd want them to, but yeah, it's unfortunate that they couldn't have had
a smoother transition.
Yeah, because now it's like you just have to hope that people will hear that the store is back. So I wish them a lot of luck.
Yeah, that's what we tried to do when we were closing. Right. Because I had made the announcement 4 months before the closing that we're going to close, and then 3 months before it's like, well, I guess somebody's interested in buying it. So, and I remember 2 months before, because you had to put the orders in 2 months early. It's like I hadn't planned on doing the order form, but I said I better do it, or else this guy's not going to have any books come July 1. And then, of course, he kind of punked out on us.
Yes. Well, look,
I'm getting angry again.
on a positive note, talking about this community of comics retailers, we have a special voice cameo here that, of course, you will recognize, and I think our audience will recognize as well. We've had people ask about this person, and we have a little story to tell about it. But let me just play this first. It's just about half a minute. The audio quality is a little rough. This was just on my phone, but a very, very special voice cameo here. And the question that I had posed to him was how it felt to know that so many people had been asking about him.
I just can't. I'm speechless, basically, to find out that so many people cared about me. I just couldn't imagine beforehand that people did care this much about me. I don't know. I look at this thing and I'm amazed.
Well, as much as you say you're speechless, for our audience, for our friends, for everyone, do you think we could get a buy spoon?
Buy spoon. People love it when they get them.
Love it. Thank you. I love you, Jay.
Believe me, I love you all.
And that, folks, Jay Mizell. Jay Mizell is still with us. Jay Mizell, of course, operated Jay's Comics at the Empire State Flea Market for decades until it closed. He was a regular fixture at Alternate Realities, coming in to hang out with Steve and have lunch and swap books on Mondays and Thursdays. That's where so many of the Alternate Realities crew got to know him. And of course, he's been in My Comic Shop documentary. He was the subject of his own spin-off short by Spoon, the Jay Mizell Story. He's been on the podcast, but not in a really, really long time. And we recently had the opportunity to reconnect with him, and it was a very, very meaningful experience.
Incredible. Yeah, for those who don't know, I'd say, what are we in here? Summer's coming up. I'll say maybe a year and a half ago or so, his mental health had declined to the point where it was very difficult. I mean, even after he closed and after we closed, Jay and I stayed in touch. But his what's the word I'm looking for? His mental acuity, really declined to the point where he could hardly make a sentence. He had no attention span. It was. For people who have experienced this with older relatives, it's like you could see the decline. It was sad. You try to keep him active, but he had lost interest in everything. He was a voracious reader, but he stopped reading. He loved old movies, but he didn't even know how to turn the television on, that type of thing. And it got to the point where his health was so bad that word had come down the line to us from his daughter that even the doctors have said maybe he's got a week, 2 weeks, maybe to end of the month, and that is over. And then we'd heard nothing. And I think maybe a good year and a half had gone by. So I presumed that he had passed away, and that she never bothered to tell any of us. But then Anthony took the initiative and reached out to her and got the information of where he was, managed to actually go out to this is near the Hartford area, drive out that way and visit him. And it was a little difficult also because we communicated with each other, but because of COVID, none of us could to visit him. But this is what's it been now? About 2 months since you went out there?
Yeah, it was. I think it was February. Yeah, I think it's been about a couple of months.
Yeah, and suddenly, but the big surprise is that he's the same old Jay that he was, I'll say 5 years ago. That's not such wisecracking because things have changed a lot in his life that there's not much going on. But I call him now maybe once a week. Send him like care packages, but he likes those little snacks and things. I tried to send him a book, one of those thrillers. I can't remember which one, not Rich Man, Poor Man, but something like that. And I thought maybe if I get him to read, and he said he tried, but it just didn't have it. So I'm going to just send him some comic books, something that a little bright colors and stuff, and short stories or whatever. Archie. So just to entertain him a little bit, but. Because I suggested should I send you jigsaw puzzles or crossword puzzles, anything to keep the mind going. But I think that's a little tough. But this place that he's at, I don't like. I get the impression that it's better than the place that he used to be at, where they do keep him active and they do talk to him instead of just leaving him in the room by himself, type of thing.
They do seem to have a lot of activities, and based on what the aides and what he himself told me, he participates, which I part of me is like, it's hard to imagine him. But again, I don't think there's really anything else. So, if that is the case, that's wonderful. Yeah. If people might remember that, and I won't recap everything, but it was a very hard road over this past decade now for Jay. The flea market closed, the market, because he detests the word flea. The market closed, and you closed, right? Because he still had that as part of his routine. Most significantly and tragically, his wife passed away. Then he moved in initially with his daughter, and then at the first facility where he was living. And I had visited him at that first
Oh, you got
nursing
to go
home.
there?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was February 2020. It was weeks before everything shut down.
Right.
But I got to go. I think it was like right after Valentine's Day. And then I went this year, I think, on Valentine's Day. So Jay's my Valentine. But one of my Valentines. So, I had gotten to see him right before everything shut down. And then, of course, to your point, it's like there's COVID. So like we couldn't go. But thankfully, for a time, he had what's called the Grand Pad. And for anyone with, someone older in your life, you might know what that is, but essentially an iPad for the elderly. And so he and I, believe it or not, were video chatting during the pandemic for at least a little while. And then it seemed like you were saying, things were really deteriorating physically and mentally at COVID at one point. And it got to the point where, and again, whatever information I've gotten has been from his daughter, and I appreciate that. She shared with me when, especially, recently it's been when I've asked, but whenever I have, she has gotten back to me, and I really do appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it really seemed, there was one update from her where I remember, these words have stuck with me. She said, they think he's transitioning.
Yeah.
And I remember Steph and I were at the playground right down the hill here from our house with our son. And I just remember looking at her. I was like, I think this is it. Like, I think this is it for Jay. And, and he pulled through, but based on everything we were hearing, just the mental condition had so deteriorated. And then eventually they moved him to this other facility. And there was a period of time where I guess just even talking on the phone, he was getting aggravated, or at least this was what was kind of being conveyed to me. So there was a stretch where I didn't know that there was really any way to get in touch with him. So anyway, finally I was able to make my way there. And I'll be honest, one of the reasons that I didn't go sooner, and it's silly and selfish, and I should have gone. I'm glad that I went, but I wish I had gone sooner. But very selfishly, that last time I had gone there, right before the pandemic, we had such a lovely visit. And not really knowing what kind of condition I was going to find him in this after that, there's a part of me that felt like to go and have him not recognize me or get upset or get angry, whatever the case may be. It's morbid. I hate to say it, but I didn't want that to be the last encounter that I had with him. And it was very selfish. And I'm so glad that I went, because I made my way through the checking in and getting my little badge and going up the elevator, all that stuff. And I saw his name on the door, and I went in. He was on the phone. So I was like, okay, good. He does have a phone. We can reach him. And at least he's talking to someone. I think it was his cousin or something like that. But he looked at me, and I could tell instantly he recognized me. And he was shocked that I was there. And he needed me to remind him of my name. But then later on, throughout a couple of hours there, he was addressing me by my name, so he knew. But initially, he did need that reminder, which I totally understand. But he recognized me and just gave me the biggest hug. And we hugged multiple times. And, he teared up a number of times. And kind of going back to that little clip that I played, the thing that I just kept trying to hammer home, and it really seemed to resonate with him, was just, and it's true. I mean, I wasn't blowing smoke. So many people, within our community and beyond, people have seen the documentary or know him from the market. Like, I get messages and things like that. So many people have asked about him. Where's Jay? How's Jay? I have one of our audience members, Lewis, who keeps asking for another episode with Jay. It's like, that's not I don't think that's really in the cards these days, but and I just kept stressing that to him, and it really meant a lot. And he teared up a bunch of times, and I was just updating him on everything that's been going on. And of course, asking about, what his routine has been like there. But it was really, really a special afternoon. And it was pleasantly surprising, I guess, just to see, like you said, that he's still Jay.
Yeah. That grandpad was a great thing, because at least we could, I would hold up different things for him to show him. But again, as time wore on, he couldn't even figure out how to turn it on. And at that first place that he was a resident, I'll call them assistants, weren't really too sharp, and they couldn't figure out how to turn it on either. So, eventually his daughter canceled it, I guess because she expected he wouldn't be around within another couple of weeks. And that's where we lost touch. And right now he only has a telephone, but he's, again, I'll say every time you talk to him, he's just so grateful for the phone call. And, and it's not really much to just call and to talk about this and that. what's going on, what's been happening, and I don't really have too much news to pass on to him about other of the old crowd because I don't stay in touch with most people anymore. I decided to go to the top of the mountain and and lock myself up there. But it was a shock to know that he was still alive, and I can't describe how happy you feel. Again, at this point, you realize we're not all going to be here forever, and it's just if nothing else, now it's like I have a different attitude about life and death and time. So I'm not mellowing out, but I have a better appreciation for what time we've got.
Who do you call when you're in trouble? Alien invasion? Call Superman. Bank being robbed? Call Spider-Man. But who can you count on if you want to learn how to make a window bag? Philtastic Comics and Art is here to help. Whether it's fighting FOMO, talking about art, or baking wheat cakes, you can count on Philtastic for your comic and art-related infotainment needs. The best part is, you don't even need a bat signal. Just look up Philtastic Comics and Art on YouTube. Subscribe today to keep up on everything Philtastic. Aw Yeah Comics celebrates and promotes everything that is wonderful about comics, toys, artwork, and the joy they bring to people. Visit them in person at one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, which happens to be my local comic shop, Skokie, Illinois, or Muncie, Indiana. If you have children and have been looking for a family-friendly store, look no further. Join Aw Yeah for exciting events, including creator signings, how-tos, and more. Visit awyeahcomics.com and follow Aw Yeah on social media for more. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Say it with me. Aw Yeah. Acme Comics is a locally owned and operated full-service comic book store in Greensboro, North Carolina for people of all ages and walks of life. Now in its 40th year, this multiple-time Eisner Award nominee features a significant contemporary and vintage back-issue selection, as the Acme team uses their collective knowledge and resources to connect you with the best material. Mail order subscriptions to new releases are available, and all offerings are available anywhere via mail order. Follow Acme on social media and eBay, listen to the Acme Cast on all podcast services, and visit acmecomics.com for much more. Yeah, well, it's a good attitude to have. So, for anyone who is wondering, Jay is still with us. He's doing, I think as well as could be expected given his condition, his age, all of that. So I'm happy that we can share that update. It was really wonderful to see him.
Physically, did he lose a lot of weight?
He was definitely slimmer. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but again, still Jay,
still a little
Jay.
Round guy. Yeah.
Still, and he was telling one of the aides about the documentary, and he wanted to show. I'm like, this guy is still promoting. I love it. Yeah. So, you mentioned about keeping in touch or not keeping in touch. This is a theme. Especially when I did that longer Halloween run of episodes a couple of years ago now with the AR crew, and we did our holiday episodes. And, sort of the recurring theme with almost everyone was, I don't really, maybe I talked to 1 or 2 people. A lot of people still get the call, or some people still get the call from Rich, and, that's a part of the routine. But, again, with the exception of Rich, who seems to be the most common denominator in terms of who people talk to, in most instances, it's like, oh, maybe I talked to this person, maybe that person, but that's kind of it. And I think that's one of the things, going back to what I was saying earlier, where, you were right. And when we were talking about the closing of the store, I think you perceived, but I think you correctly perceived that we sort of had a hope and expectation that, the gatherings would continue, not as frequently, but more frequently than they have. And that there would still be more of that, that larger sense of community. And in fairness, we did have the pandemic, but, even absent that, I think you correctly predicted that it would just be so much harder, and that the effort wouldn't always necessarily be there.
I think, people have their lives to live, and suddenly it's like, well, I can't come to dinner because I've got to take the kids to this, or even here, it's like Milo's always sick every time we try to do one of these podcasts. So, I guess experience had taught me that, for all the people from school and law school, I don't think I stay in touch with more than one or two people, and that's only Facebook or comment now and then. All the people I work with at all the different places I've worked at, and even law firm, and I just knew that you have this, like Brandon understood this. It was a part of your life, but then you move on to the next part. And it's a good memory or good relationship, so that maybe you could just, when you get together, it's like no time had gone by at all. But I knew that people would just start spreading out through the world and having their own things to do, raising family or different jobs or moving or something like that. So it did strike me when we were closing that everybody was saying, "Oh, we'll still get together every Saturday for dinner." I was saying, I don't know. And then it became every other Saturday. They were trying, and then every once a month, and then they had the book club, and they were getting together once a month. But there were all these people who I didn't even know were coming to book club. And I didn't go to book club, but even Rich did. But even with Rich, who was in the habit of calling every Saturday and every Sunday at 11 a.m., he fell out of that. So maybe I get a call from him on the weekend once. I guess everybody else, Drew texts once in a while, but Drew found a new interest in, I don't know what they're called, racing cars or something like that. Mm-hmm. He was into radio-controlled airplanes for a while, and then he discovered these. What is that? What are they called?
The RCA?
No. These are like professional racers. Yeah. Now, not that he's watching the Indy 500 all day long, but he's collecting all these different cards and the variant cards and stuff like that, and it's like a whole new field of interest for him. So, again, everybody, we're not all going to stick with Magic the Gathering and pop vinyls. They've moved on to new things.
Yeah. No, and again, just to sort of, again, I don't want to paint like so bleak a picture. Again, the sense that I get, I think that there are, people do still keep in touch, but I think it's more on a, individual people or maybe small groups who still maybe have more similar interests, something like that. Less so, again, certainly the larger groups, although in a happy update, and I don't think he listened to the episode and then was inspired to do this. I think it was just a coincidence, but Mike San Gregorio took the reins and put a call out and organized a dinner for the Alternate Realities crew over Memorial Day weekend. And so we're all looking forward to that. So that'll be, kind of the first gathering, like large gathering in quite some time. We did something at Shake Shack, I think now a couple of summers ago. But it's been a while since we've had one of those larger gatherings. I've asked you this before. I don't expect I will get any kind of different answer, but I let me just renew the question, as this is the last time you'll be on the show solo. For the series finale, it'll be you and Rich and Bill keeps saying he's going to fly in for it. I'm like, we can get you here on Zoom. It's okay. But whatever the case may be, we'll have a group series finale. But the last time you'll be on
I didn't
solo,
know that. Are we having another?
So, yeah, don't worry. So you'll have another opportunity. But let me renew this question this last time. And I don't want this to come off as combative, because that's not my intention at all. Like, I'm genuinely curious. So as I say this, if my tone sounds otherwise, please know that's not what I mean. But like, has it ever occurred to you, maybe I'll put the call out to the boys, to the group, to see if they want to get together for dinner? Like, is that something that does it ever cross your mind and then you don't do it for some reason, or does it not even really kind of enter into the equation? I am genuinely curious.
I don't think I really think like that. I figure you young guys, and you're not all young anymore. Yeah, I mean, in my head, you guys are always going to be in your early 20s. But, how old are you now?
I just turned 36.
Yeah, and then some of the other ones are in their 40s. But I think that, and especially now that I'm not even in New York anymore, it's my thinking is that you younger guys will all still stay in touch and get together once in a while, and that's fine. I feel like, remember the days I used to think, well, I'm going to retire and I'm just going to wander the earth.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And I'm going to like Kwai Chang King on Kung Fu, just wander the earth, stop at some place and say, I'm Oto, I will help you, and help these people out, and then move on to the next town. and you all said, well, you're never going to get past four corners because you can't walk that far. But I feel like, okay, now that I'm out of New York, it's like, people. I think people know that they can contact me if they need help, and I'll always help them. But I'm not. I'm in a different process now in my head, and I guess this is a change with all the years because I'm going to be 67 soon. The whole Social Security and Medicare and all that stuff that old people think about. And my thing is, I've got so much crap that I've got to get rid of. And it's a full-time job. I probably work harder now than I did at the store. But I've got to take care of this stuff before I die. And so it's like, okay, how can I put it? I leave the world to you younger guys to enjoy it and each other. And, I'll take care of the behind. It's like running a comic book store. I'll take care of the stuff behind the scenes so you guys can hang out at the front counter and chat. That's kind of the way I feel about the way my life is right now. Right. So, no, I don't think about calling. It's nice. Like, I think Rich is probably the only one who makes that effort. And everybody gets their allotted 30 minutes before it's like, oh, I hate to be rude, but I have to go on to the next guy,
Yeah, no. I hear you. That makes sense. And I am really looking forward to this dinner that Mike has organized. And, we had teased this last time. We'll have more information next time, but there is potentially an AR reunion at Terrificon at the end of July coming up. We have at least a few of us who are planning to go. So, audience, if anyone's going to be at Terrificon, we'll probably have some level of alternate realities contingent there. So if you run into us, say hello. I got stopped at a convention one time. I got recognized at C2E2, and it delighted me to no end. I was just soaring the rest of the day. I was like, Steph, this guy knew me from the podcast. Anyway.
Well, it's like Rich when he walked into Fat Moose for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And Sean goes, "You're the guy." So I think Bill experienced that with Sean also when he happened to call Fat Moose.
Oh yeah.
And Sean recognizes, never met him, but recognized that voice. I know that voice.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
One of the so we've got about 20 minutes left here. One of the things that I was curious about, I know we've been talking about keeping in touch in the context of the crew, the inner circle, the friends of the store. But I was curious, other than maybe some people via Facebook, are you in touch with any of the customers to any extent these days?
Aside from Facebook?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what people are doing. They post it, and sometimes I'll make a comment or here.
But like you haven't actually
spoken
or gotten together with anybody? I'm just curious.
No.
Because I told the story on the last episode, so I won't rehash, but I ran into Brian Claudio outside Best Buy in Hartsdale a few months ago. Hadn't seen him in forever. The other question, are there, and I'm sure there's got to, maybe somebody will pop into your head, who are you most curious about, especially someone you don't have any contact with on Facebook? Like all those people who came through, are there any people you're like, man, I really wonder whatever became of Wallet Boy or Comic Eater or like anybody else?
I don't know, not in particular. I mean, every now and then a name pops into my head and then I'll do my Google search on them. I looked up Jeff Wong the other day. I found a picture of him at a family dinner and all that kind of stuff. And, God only knows. But not really. Again, my general feeling is that people have their lives, their families, and their jobs, their issues, and I guess just being able to see the comments, I understand where they are. It's one of those things where if I do run into them, I know exactly what happened, that they just went to their niece's wedding or something like that. So in a way, it still feels like contact. It's not like the same when I was standing at the counter and somebody would come in once a week and we spend 15 minutes and catch up on what's been going on. I feel like I still kind of know that handful of people. There are people I think about, I hate to say it, but some people say, I wonder if they're still alive. I mean, and these are people I liked.
Right.
You remember Reggie?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I wonder what happened to Reggie. But yeah, it's to me that's just life.
Yeah.
And
No,
people
it's not.
come
I don't
out.
expect that it would keep you up at night or anything
Yeah.
like that. I was just curious.
I don't. Is there anybody? Well, even like, well, I mean, I know there are people out there who, well, not everybody uses Facebook anymore, but people that like Kara,
Yeah.
she'd, she was on it for a while and then she disappeared off the planet. Now all I ever see is like when she happens to come back and, she hangs out with some friends of hers and the friends post photographs or whatever. And again, inside I hope she's doing well.
She's on other social media. She seems to be doing well. She's involved with the I Read Comic Books podcast, and so she's out there. She's okay.
And it's nice to know that their lives are moving on, and that they're fulfilled. They're feeling fulfilled, and others we read like health problems and such like that. It's like, what can you do? You can, again, it's life, ups and downs, and you're glad for them when things are good. You feel bad for them when things are bad. But I'm not really in that position anymore to do much.
All right. No, fair enough. And I guess I can probably guess the answer to this too, but
sorry.
It's okay. Because especially when Bill and I talk about this, and we talk about, kind of longing for the store, but I think especially that time in our lives and, when we would spend so much time there and that was the place to go. And, anytime I'm on Central Avenue, which is rare actually these days, but, there will always be that wistfulness and that nostalgia for the store. Do you feel that at all? Like, is there any sort of nostalgic feeling towards the store? Anything that you kind of like, oh, I wish I could go back to that moment for this? Or is it really just kind of in the rear view mirror?
It's different for me. It was so much work. Even like today, for this I got up at 6:00 in the morning, but I still go to bed at like 1:30 at night because I'm still doing research on books or whatever. I get up at 6:00, but 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd be getting up at 6:00 in order to work on the order form or the cycle sheets or final order cutoffs. Picking up the stuff, breaking it down, cleaning up. It was nonstop, and that would go till after we closed and till midnight, 1:00, 2:00 in the morning. So I look at it now and say, that's my strongest memory. My nightmares. Those are still my. Here it is, 8 years later. I still have nightmares of I have to open up the store, but I forgot to break down the books, and they're just piles of diamond boxes. So I think it's just because that's what I lived through. I mean, I was glad to have the location and glad to have the friends come and hang out. And I'm glad everybody had a great joy from it and got something out of it. But for me, it was a lot of work, and that's the strongest memory I have of running the store.
I understand. And that's something Bill and I have talked about too, where we do genuinely recognize that it was a different experience, that you, of course, had all of the responsibility. You had the burden of it. We cared about the store, but it meant something different to us. And so we do remember it differently. And so when we think of our time there, our minds and hearts gravitate towards, hey, it was fun and we had a great time. And I know for you, it was a lot of work. And, that probably helps. I was thinking about this. And we talked about it when you first set up the Westies rooms, AKA units, and now in your new home where you're sort of reconstructing alternate realities, the stuff without the people. And, on the one hand, it could sort of feel like not a disconnect, but it's like, we always talk about the store being so great because of the people. And over here, it's like, well, Steve just liked the stuff. But again, they were different experiences. And so I can respect that. In our last 10 minutes here, I do want to go through some of these major updates, which we've touched on in various forms, and I'm not necessarily even trying to go in order here, but in terms of chronology, but you finally close your Diamond account, because I know you had this account open. You had to order a minimum amount, right, to keep it going. And I guess there got to a point where there just wasn't enough that interested you.
I don't know if it wasn't so, well, it was hard to find stuff every month because after a while I didn't need to order 100 copies of this so to try to make the minimum was a little difficult, but inevitably there'd be a nice hardcover book or just a Godzilla toy Well, when the Godzilla toy covered the minimum because it was an import that would be ridiculously expensive. But I think things started falling apart at Diamond. They lost the DC account. They lost Marvel. So there was even less to order. And, after all these years of buying a collection of, say, Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 10, it's like, how many times am I going to buy this book? Hardcover, signed versions, all that, whatever it was. It's just, I have this same collection of 10 comic books in 5 different formats. So it was hard to find some stuff. But again, like the Prince Valiant book, that, a couple of things here and there, I could make the minimum easily. But as things started falling apart at Diamond, instead of sending me a previews every month so I can see what I should order next, they wouldn't even send it to me. And I would contact them, but by the time they sent it to me, I already missed the order cutoff date. So it got to the point where it became too difficult. I was ordering it blind. I would go online and just see the printout of what it was, but I had no idea what the thing was. So after a while, I said, this is ridiculous. And then as it came down closer to the end of the year, after we moved, I said, well, what's the point of this? It's like, I don't need to buy more inventory to sell online. And everybody I knew who worked, except for Nancy Romer, but most everybody's gone. So I didn't even have a service rep anymore, customer rep, and I'd gone through a lot of them. The turnaround was ridiculous. So at this point, I said, there's no reason to have the account. It gave me access to the database of all the product. So it's nice to be able to use that as a source for doing my own descriptions on eBay. But like anything else, you adjust. Now that I don't have all the information, the page counts and release dates and all that kind of stuff, it's like, I don't really need to put that into my descriptions. People want to buy this book, don't care who the inker was.
Right.
That's my fault. I put too much information on, but I figure, why not? For me, the joy is doing the research and then writing, presenting it all. So this is because there are times I would look at something on eBay and say, this description is fantastic, right? And then I realized it was something that I had posted.
So the Diamond account is closed. That's another sort of,
I guess it's a milestone.
End of an era. Yeah.
Well, what's it been? 20 odd years? When we opened in 92, right? So, it's 30 years of a Diamond account.
Yeah, for sure. And on the warehouse front, now, again, we just have a few minutes here, so I'll just ask for the kind of the abridged version. But my understanding, you did sell certain categories of product wholesale, right? Like, didn't all the trades or a lot of the trades went off?
A neighbor had said that a friend of his had a comic book shop upstate and needed inventory. And we had, our back issue inventory was spectacular. We had probably more back issues than most comic shops have that are existing. And full runs. I'd spent years putting it in chronological, alphanumerical order. So it's like, again, the idea was somebody says, do you have Incredible Hulk number 168? I said, yes. And I could just pull it out. So all the boxes were labeled. Everything was in order. And then this guy said he had a friend who wanted to buy an inventory. So the guy came down with this truck, He came down, took a look. We made the deal. And then he came back down a couple of days later with a truck and his friend. And they took all the back issues. Almost all the back issues. That's a whole nother story. Getting angry. but so that was gone. I said, well, this is great. Now all the back issue bins are freed up. I can take all these trades and put them in alphanumerical order, DC, Marvel. And so I did that. And then I said, well, I have all these independent trades, like 30 boxes of independent trades. So I put those in order. And then Mark Hammond, they needed to restock some inventory at their Illinois shop. So I said, okay, we made a deal that they take this stuff, sell it, and we split it 50-50. It's so much stuff that there's no way I was going to, again, live long enough to sell it on my own. And it helped him out. and realistically, and it's like, if they never sell it and it still sits in Illinois, it's like, oh well, don't have to pay me for it. It was good to clear up the space. And then when we moved out of New York, I said, well, these warehouse spaces cost a lot of money every month. And so I wanted to clear out as best as I could one of them. And I did, and got it all up to the house. The garage is full. So, but every day I take a box out of that garage and sort through it and organize it and put it where it needs to go. And the other room we still have, because I emptied out most of that, the statues, but took everything from the house that belongs to Evan and put it in there so he can do the reconstruction work of the old house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you and your wife left the Oto Castle, and you've relocated. But I know that the home is remaining in the family, and your son just got married. Congratulations!
Yeah,
so that's all exciting. I mean, it's funny because there are all these things that I think we always associated with you. Obviously, the store, but the Pathfinder and the Oto Castle, and things like that.
The Pathfinder broke down. The what else? Oh, I had to take a new warehouse space in Danbury. It looks exactly like a Westies. It might have been an old Westies, but not as modernized. But the way the elevators, the carts, the doors, it's almost a perfect. It's like the Bizarro World version, because it's not quite right. Not quite as many doors, or not quite as well maintained, but it's half the price. So I took out a large room and threw everything into there. And that's another one I spent a day to organize. So now I can at least find stuff.
So you still have two warehouse units, but in
one
two
in White
different
Plains,
warehouses.
one in Danbury.
When we're delighted to no end at just we sort of this idea that the Westies guys in White Plains just fall all over themselves to try to accommodate you because you're their best customer and you've had these multiple units for almost a decade at this point. When you said you were leaving one of them and kind of winding down on the other one, was there any sort of reaction from them?
No, because Westies, the one in White Plains anyway, is so busy that they must have like 95% full capacity all the time. And they just happen to be very good people working there. And yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time there, more than most people. Most people come, drop off their stuff, and leave. I would go there and spend half a day there, and to organize stuff, and they're not allowed to get gifts, but I would bring donuts and stuff like that. So, the reason we still have that one Westies room in White Plains is because before the rent goes up, and we wanted to put as much of the Godzilla stuff in there so that Evan can do the renovations, and then he can move all that stuff out of there. And eventually we'll clear out that thing. Any excess will come up to the Danbury warehouse, because that'll be that's half the price, and it's stuff that he won't need access to right away. And then eventually that will be emptied out, because I'm emptying out the Danbury stuff of my own stuff to incorporate it into the store, into the house.
Before this podcast series is done, because of course we still have our summer installment with Rich and then our fall finale with all of you guys, we will share some photos, at least probably some video as well, of this new version of alternate realities that Steve is building in his home.
I'm very excited. I mean, I bought a heat press. I've got all the materials I needed, cleaning materials. Let's face it, we've got tons and tons of books that were not well kept, that have those terrible curves and waves that just need to be cleaned off, or has that film of dust that needs to be cleaned off, pressed so that they can be beautiful looking books. And then, so instead of being worth $1, they'll be worth $1.50.
Well, listen, a couple of things as we sign off here. To me, the most important thing is that you're happy and you're enjoying yourself. And so organizing all of these things, researching them, listing them, setting up the press, setting up this alternate realities, whatever we're up to, 13.0. If you're happy, that makes me happy, and I'm glad. And I also want to say, and I know we've said this, but again, for the record, so you know, obviously, of course, how grateful I am for you in the store, but we'll save that for the series finale. But that even though I'm, sad the store is gone, what I've really been trying to do is just mostly be grateful that it was there at all, rather than being sad that it's gone. And also, again, so for your sake, I'm glad you closed it, right? And we've talked about this. Given where you were in terms of your feelings towards the store, back at the time when you closed it, and then in light of everything that has happened in the real world, in the comics industry since then, it's like the idea of you kind of trudging along through all of these changes in distributors, through the pandemic, through political upheaval, because that would have been a problem at the store. A lot of people coming through, get different perspectives. I don't think it would have been a good time for you or for others. So I'm happy for you. And so when we talk about, I miss the store, it's not that I wish it was still there literally, because you did the right thing for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Very often, Ann and I say I got out at the right time. Not just, I guess, what I think running a small business is, what did Kirk say? Or it's flying around the galaxy is something for the young, right? I think running a comic book shop, it's easier when you're younger and have the enthusiasm and understanding of the product. I mean, I don't even recognize the titles anymore. My days, my time is past, unless I was just a dealer of Silver Age books. Then that's one thing. But just the other day, I was looking at an advertisement for some books coming out. One of the other guys posted it, and it's like $3.99, $4.99 per book. I said, "This is crazy to me."
Yeah,
but again, I'm part of that other world where comic books used to cost 12 cents. So when they raised it from 15 to 20, I said, I quit.
Well, listen, thank you very much for coming out here today. I'm glad we got to do this.
I'm sorry we were kind of rushed.
No, it's quite all right. I got to go run to pick up my son from preschool, but we got this in, we did it. And I hope people enjoyed it. I know people are always excited when you come on. So hopefully they enjoyed the episode. You'll be back for the series finale for our fall episode. So we'll have another chat on my comic shop history. But again, congrats on the move, on your son's wedding, on all that good stuff. And audience, thank you for tuning in. Listen, this weekend, Free Comic Book Day, don't be a pig, all right? And of course, as always, don't be a flat squirrel. My fellow